Good morning. Do we have any birthdays or anniversaries this week?
I'm able to chaperone them.
No. I will come to her and physically make sure she gets the chocolate instead of you.
You're a devil, you know that?
Aww, thanks. Hide it, Shirley.
He's been here before. Maybe I ought to go home.
You need some church, Arlie.
You need to be here early. Do we have any other birthdays or anniversaries real quick?
Gotta change the subject.
If you don't have a bulletin, Delaney and Rich have bulletins. Just raise your hand. They will get one to you. There's a few things to announce. A couple things to highlight real quick. First of all, the men's prayer breakfast. It is on.
It is on Saturday morning, 8 o'clock, Rita's. Buy your own breakfast.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes.
We have just kind of been going, here at the church, we've kind of been going over and redoing some of the paperwork and policies of how we do things here. So there's a couple of things to note real quick. If you want to borrow items from the church, we have a sign-out sheet. Just come see me, Janice, or Connie, and we will be happy to sign it out with you, but it has to go through one of us, just so we can kind of be good stewards of the supplies God has given us. As well as, if you'd like to have an event here at church, i.e. like a wedding, baby shower, birthday party, etc., come see me or Amanda to schedule so we can get it on the church schedule. Should I let you, do you want to make the announcement?
Oh, here, go ahead.
Marilyn's not here to do it for you.
Yeah, I know. All right, Gifted Crafters is gonna do our dinner theater silent auction, again this year. We're not doing it at Thanksgiving.
Valentine's.
It's gonna be for Valentine's, but it's gonna be Saturday, February 25th. It's $10 for adults, 5 to 12 is $5, under 5 is free. We're going to have a spaghetti dinner, we're going to have a live auction, we're going to have a silent auction, we're going to have a mystery theater, which is a comedy. It's going to be a little bit of audience participation. We're going to have a craft table. We're trying to get donations, so if you have anything you would like to donate to auction, we appreciate it, and we're trying to get more men items. So,
Tools, impact wrenches, stuff like that.
and you are bringing those.
Oh, question. What is the price for guys over 75?
Oh,
Ah.
no, 20 for you, Art.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have questions, did I cover it? I hope. Okay, thank you.
See, Early, you kind of set the mood for the whole day already. If there's no other announcements,
I have one, Mariah, I did have a question. You said it's $10. Who do we get it to?
Me, I started selling, and I'll do it every, I'm gonna try to get it every Sunday. We're a month out, so I will be here doing it. I can't do it after church, because I was told I gotta hurry.
She's obedient.
And I have, also this Sunday, I have the end of the year letters of contributions. Please, if you didn't get it last Sunday, look for me or Darlene or Wayne, because we really need to get them to you so that save the church's staff, okay? All right, thank you, at the end of the service.
all right? There's nothing else? Ms. Joanne, we have a lesson today, I assume? Awesome. So let's pray, and then we'll bring our children forward. Heavenly Father, Today is a wonderful day. This is the day you made, and I thank you. I praise you for that. Please feed our hearts and our souls so that we go out and spread your love and your light throughout this world. Bless these children that are to come forward so that we may raise them in your ways, Father. The most precious and holy name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Children, you're welcome to come forward.
Probably, Amanda, probably.
We get to sit next to the candy. I need a helper. I think I enlisted one here. He's gonna stand up here by me, and we're going to talk a little bit about our tongue.
Turn around.
I can't see her.
Okay, how was your week?
Great.
Was it good? Did you have a good time? Did you get in any trouble or do anything you shouldn't have done? I did. Everybody's shaking their head, yes, yes, yes.
Don't incriminate yourself.
We're going to talk, the reason I made this is because it symbolizes loose talk. Do you know what loose talk is?
You're talking without knowing what you're saying.
Why? Most people just associate that with gossip, don't they? But are there some other things besides gossip that we might be mindful of? Yes. Thank you. Well, I'll tell you, since we've been studying in Proverbs, we can talk about Proverbs and our tongue. In Proverbs 10:11, it says, "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but violence overwhelms the mouth of the wicked. Wise men store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin." And in verse 18 it says, "He who conceals his hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool." You know, I got to look at chapters 10 and 11, 12, 13 in the book of Proverbs, and our Lord has a lot to say about our tongue. And I was thinking about some of the things that we do and say and get involved in that really don't do us a bit of good. How about sassing your mom or dad? Did you do that this past week? Did you get in trouble with that? They just smile at me. They don't want anything. How about making fun of somebody who's old or feeble? Miss Joanne is old and almost feeble. Feeble-minded sometimes and feeble in her body. Do you see people like that around town and you think, why don't that old person get out of my way? That old person takes up all the room in the grocery store down the aisle, and they're just fooling around down there looking at things. How about people who are crippled? Or maybe you think they don't look as good as you do. Or maybe you just think they shouldn't be out at all because they're just not of value. But does our God value all people? He values all people. And we need to remember that when we're out and about. We need to remember that one of these days we're going to be old, and we may not can see so well, and we may not hear so well, and we may not be doing so well. But we need to remember that our God made each one of us. And we all are loved by Him. We all are important to Him. And we all have a place in his world. And when we look at other people, let's remember that. Amen? Let's look at it. Oliver's going to come now, and he's going to help us with the prayer.
Amen.
Thank you very much for holding that for me.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank us for going in this youth group that we have here. They have come to this community here in this church to learn more about your word. Please help our governments, state and federal, to guide them through the trying times that's ahead of them. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
God bless you.
I need to ask you all to do something for me this week. I want you to reach in your pocket, your wallet, your purse, whatever you got, and I want you to take out some money. Oh my gosh, you don't believe me, do you? I got mine ready to go. Take out whatever you got, a dollar, a quarter, a penny, 50-cent piece. Credit cards? Credit cards. Sorry, don't take cards here.
Brother, she won't let me have some no money, but I got some M&Ms here.
Hey, I know where those came from, so that's not yours. But take out money. And I promise you, this is not one of those tithing sermons. I promise you, that's not my intent. I just want you to see something that you got with your money there. If you've got a penny, that'll work. Coins, bills. If you're Canadian, sorry, you're not in on this one.
Hey, the American dollar's back.
There you go.
Wrong with the Canadian?
Well, I'm not going to go there and answer that, sorry.
Okay.
I'm just going to say that what the Canadian money has may not be what I'm going to show you on our money.
Okay.
All right, now, whatever you got, I want you to take a look at. I want you to look, if you got, like me, I pulled out a dollar bill. I want you to look on both sides. Obverse side, reverse side, you know, those are the names of your coins. Obverse side is the side that's got the face on it. Reverse side is the side that's what we would call the back. Take a look. Anybody notice something on your money that would be on everyone's money? Like me, I got a dollar bill. I got George Washington. If you don't got George Washington, you don't match me. Do you know? You got Lincoln. See, Carla and I don't match on faces. So it's not the face that I'm trying to point out to you. And the number, I got a 1, you got a 5. That don't match. Something else matches. If you got a penny, it's going to match somebody that's got a quarter. If you got a quarter, it's going to match what I'm trying to point out to you on a 50-cent piece. Has anybody got an idea of what I'm giving you clues here for? What do you got?
Right there.
In God we trust.
In God we trust. All right now we're going to trust in this remote. We prayed over this remote. We prayed over this remote last week. We're going to see. So Wayne, you might need to help me out. Here we go.
Faith.
In God we trust is on your money. Whether you got a dollar bill like I did, you got pennies, dimes, nickels, quarters, whatever you got, your American coins, bills, all are printed with "In God We Trust."
That's right.
Amen.
Now help me out. I don't know. In Canada, do they put that? I don't know.
I haven't been there for so long. I don't think so.
I don't know. But it made me start looking up something this morning. I'm one of those curious guys that whenever I think of a topic, I really got to research that out. Google was made for people like me. I always want to know more about things. So I read this week a verse, or not this week, but I read it a couple weeks ago, a verse in Proverbs. How many of you are still keeping up with your Proverbs? Today's the 22nd, so you should be reading Proverbs 22. But a couple of weeks ago, I found something that kind of hit home a little bit, and I wanted to talk about it this morning. If you got your Bible, it's Proverbs 3, verse 5. It was on the title slide, but while I got this money up and you got your money out, I want to tell you a little story about that money while you're flipping your pages in your Bible. In God We Trust is on every American coin, every American paper bill. And it's been that way for a while. Did you know that on the Star-Spangled Banner, way back in 1815, or 1812, War of 1812, Star-Spangled Banner, we talked about, Barry and I think we talked about Star-Spangled Banner, what, 2 years ago we did 4th of July? There's a phrase in that song that says, "In God is our trust." And it's one of those, I think it's like the 4th or 5th verse, one of those verses that most people probably aren't familiar with. But the song says, "In God is our trust." During the Civil War, Salmon P. Chase was the Secretary of Treasury, and the United States was trying to make paper bills. It was the first time the United States government was making paper bills and had been minting coins. And as Secretary of the Treasury, he received numerous requests during the war, starting right away when the war started, that the government was printing all this money, making all this money, minting money, and they had a request from lots of different places around the country that people wanted him to print some phrase that that showed that the country's faith was in God. So what he actually started with was the phrase from the Star-Spangled Banner, "In God is our trust." And before he sent it to the engravers, before he sent it to be voted on to Congress to decide on what this phrase was going to be on the money, he actually, Salmon P. Chase, was the man that came up with "In God we trust." He revised the Star-Spangled Banner during the Civil War to say, "In God we trust." In 1865, Congress voted to start printing "In God we trust" on money. War ended in 1865, Civil War ended, and so the plan really didn't become as universal as what was intended. Not all denominations, not all money was printed with "In God we trust," at least because of the Civil War. It wasn't until later that that actually happened. In 1938, by 1938, all American coins were printed with "In God we trust." If you have old coins sitting around, you have like wheat pennies or something, you have older coins, look on them and it will still have "In God we trust." But it wasn't until 1938 that all coins were printed that way. In 1956, during the Cold War, Eisenhower was president. Congress passed a resolution that "In God we trust" would actually become the motto of the United States. Did you know that it's our actual official motto? "In God we trust" became our official motto in 1956, and they agreed then that it should be printed on paper money, currency. It had only been on coins before that. It took 10 years to get every denomination of paper money printed with "In God we trust." So by 1966, you should see "In God we trust" on paper money. If you have older paper money sitting around, it might not be there. But since 1956, "In God we trust" has actually been the United States' motto. In 2001, I'll make sure I didn't get it right. In 2006, the U.S. Senate reaffirmed that vote that was taken in 1956, that resolution. The Senate reaffirmed it. In 2011, the House of Representatives reaffirmed that, revoted. And so today, even after revote, "In God we trust" is the United States' actual official motto. Not just to put on coins, but it's actually official. Of course, you probably would be familiar with people that would be unhappy with that being there. There are groups that would like to remove that, take it off, but courts have not really supported that, and we still have it today. "In God we trust" is our motto. Ted was singing "Trust and Obey," and it goes with what I found in Proverbs. Are you all ready with your Bibles? In Proverbs. Ooh, look at that, remote's working. Yay. Proverbs 3:5 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. I wanted to talk today about this proverb. How well do we put our trust in God? It's one thing to put God's name on our money, which, by the way, did you know that Theodore Roosevelt, President Theodore Roosevelt, thought that it was sacrilegious to put God, in God we trust, on our money. He was not a big proponent of that idea. And maybe you're not either. Maybe that's something you don't want to connect, make that connection. But how do we put our trust in God? It says in our money, but how do we personally do that in our lives? And it makes me think about something that I was talking about last week. We were talking about Proverbs, we were talking about wisdom. And I was telling you about visiting hospitals. I've been doing a lot of that recently, going to hospitals if people are not feeling good, if they're injured or sick or whatever may be the case. And I was telling you that we found, or I found, that we as a group do a surprising thing. I was telling you that I went into those hospitals not knowing how I could be of any service and do any kind of good, but yet every time I went into those hospital rooms, I walked away not blessing other people, not the way that I had thought about going into that, but I have been blessed coming out. It's amazing to me how people deal with those situations. And it really made me think of this verse. Do we trust in the Lord with our heart? Those hospital situations. You know, somebody is, here's an example. I've been in the hospital a few times with people that needed an angioplasty. You know what an angioplasty is? You go through a wrist or go through your veins in your leg to deal with cardiovascular problems. Sometimes people get stents, sometimes just taking pictures of seeing what blockage is or isn't there. But I've had a few times recently where I've actually been with people just before they go into an angioplasty and right after. It could be a worrisome time. I think if it was me, I would be worried. I would think, man, what all could go wrong? What? Get halfway up and, you know, something isn't right. You know, those veins, they gotta be kind of thin, don't you think? You could injure yourself, tear something, cause an extra bleed or something. I would be kind of worried. But that's not the case that I see these people. I see our folks, and they're confident. It's amazing to me how confident we are. And I think it goes with this verse. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. If it was me, and it was my understanding, oh my gosh, I could sit there and think of a million reasons why something would go wrong. Something. But if I trust in God, there's a little bit different take to it. Trusting God, I don't think means that we have a perfect life where nothing goes wrong. Can anybody raise your hand and tell me you have a perfect life where everything's always good, everything's sunny, nothing ever goes wrong? Go ahead, raise your hand, don't be shy. Never. All right, I gotta wait, you're still not raising your hand. Well, maybe it's because none of us have that life. If we live a life where things aren't perfect, where things can go wrong, how do you trust God? You're in the middle of a situation, you're in the middle of a problem, that hospital situation I've been referring to. Maybe it's not a hospital situation in your life. Maybe it's a financial thing in your life. Maybe it's a personal relationship thing, you know, husband, wife, or father, child, or whatever it may be. Maybe those are the situations that you're more familiar with. How do you trust God in those difficult situations? How do you do it? I see prayer requests. People send me updates and say, you know, pray for so-and-so, they're in the hospital here today, or pray for so-and-so, their mother is something, or pray for this person because of certain financial problem. And I see these situations come up. And I see one way to deal with it is that prayer. It says, lean not on your own understanding. Are we a people that like to feel in charge of situations, to feel that we control situations? Do you feel more comfortable thinking that you are in charge of a situation? Let me give you just a silly little example. Bailey is learning how to drive. I didn't even say anything else, and look at you all. Do you know where I'm going with this? I can tell. Maybe I shouldn't waste our time this morning. You all know where I'm headed. Bailey is learning how to drive. I have to now sit in that passenger seat. I put Bailey in that driver's seat, and I say, we're headed to church. That was the case this morning. Bailey drove us here this morning.
Amen.
If I'm not even saying that. If I were to lean on my own understanding, if I were to lean on my own understanding, the teacher in me would come out. I would be, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, you're doing that wrong, you're doing this. I would be talking every minute of the day. That whole drive, I would be correcting. I would get very teacher on that. But I don't think Bailey would benefit from that. It would make her nervous. That would make her where she didn't even want to get in the car. She didn't want to get in that situation. But I'm learning that I have to be that passenger at times. And I have to trust that she can handle that situation. I have to turn it over to her. And yes, there's corrections and reminders and what's the speed limit on this road? There's little things. She might not agree to the word little. She might think it's more than just a little. But I have to give up control. And that's a difficult task. You might be like that just sitting in your own car. Are you more comfortable being the driver in the car or being the passenger? You might like to feel that you're in charge. But honestly, we probably have way less control over things than we like to tell ourselves.
Amen.
We're really, really good about that, leaning on our own understanding. We're maybe not so good about that first part, about trusting the Lord. How many of you are doing the chronological Bible readings? We've been talking about those Wednesday nights. We meet and we do chronological Bible readings. We just started my favorite book. John's here. He's going to know what my favorite book is. We started Job. But the good news is, before Job, we talk about Joseph. We read in the chronological Bible, first couple of weeks of January, we read Genesis. And of course, the end of Genesis is the study, or the reading, about Joseph. Joseph makes me think of this verse. If you're familiar with the story about Joseph, you're going to see why. But let me tell you. Joseph, many, many brothers. He's his favorite son of his father. Father kind of favors him, gives him special treatment. The coat of many colors. I was kind of teasing the other day. We're going to study about Joseph, but we're not bringing in the whole musical to it. But Joseph is highly favored by his father, which doesn't make his brothers very happy. So his brothers they plot and they come up with a plan to get rid of him. They initially want to kill their brother, they want to kill Joseph. And that plan gets modified a little bit, and they throw him into a pit. Ends up getting sold, goes to Egypt, he's a slave. Where in the world would you trust the Lord when your brothers are throwing you in the bottom of a pit? Would you look for God at work in that some way? Joseph's in this pit. Brothers selling him off. He goes to Egypt. He does amazing work heading up Potiphar's house. Potiphar even recognizes that his decisions, his management of the house comes from his God. And he gives him total control over everything in that house. There's that control again. We like that. But then suddenly all that control is gone. Potiphar's wife says, "Hey, how you doing today, Joseph?" And he runs off. He runs off. She's there left holding his robe. And she starts yelling. And pretty soon, he's in prison. He's in prison, got, I don't know exactly what it looked like, but I imagine prison cell, bars, whatever it may be. How does he trust the Lord? He's in prison. He knows he didn't do anything wrong. The woman was lying about him. How does he trust the Lord? Other guys get out of prison ahead of him. He's innocent. How does he trust the Lord? He actually gets out of prison, and you're familiar with the story because Pharaoh has dreams. So Pharaoh hears that Joseph can interpret dreams. Joseph gets out of prison, tells Pharaoh, "Hey, this is what your dreams mean, and here's what you need to do because of your dream." Pharaoh says, "Wow, that's a good plan. How about I put you in charge of setting that up for me? I'm king, but you're in charge of getting all of our grains, our supplies, our surplus ready." You're familiar with the whole story. 7 years of good crops, 7 years famine. Joseph prepared and got things ready. Pharaoh puts him in charge of that. He finds that his brothers show up one day looking for food. There's famine. He didn't have food. His brothers show up. He kind of does a test with his brothers to see where they stand with him after all this time and about what they wanted to do, killing him first and eventually selling him. He puts him through a series of tests, and his brothers find out who he is, and they're kind of reunited, and brings his family to Egypt, and they survive. Huge famine, all this land, all this area around Egypt, not enough food, but because Joseph had interpreted this dream, because Joseph was placed in charge of storing this food, now there is food enough to outlast this famine. The Egyptians can survive with the food, but not just the Egyptians. His father's whole family, brothers that threw him in the pit included, can now survive. They move to Egypt. And there's something kind of interesting to that story. We were talking about this Wednesday night in our Bible study, which there's a little plug for you. If you're interested, we do Bible study Wednesday night, 6:30. But we read something, and if my remote's still cooperating, I want to show you. Jacob dies, that's Joseph's father. His brothers are worried. They're like, "Oh my gosh, maybe he's just been nice to us because his father was still alive and he didn't want to deal with us while dad was still around. But now that dad's gone, shoot, Joseph could throw us in prison or worse." So they come to him and they're begging his forgiveness. And he says something that goes amazingly well with that idea of trusting God. He says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." He was thrown in the pit. He was thrown in prison. He actually rose to run the country, at least be the second guy in charge of the country. His brothers are worried that he's going to kill them or put them in prison after all this time of, I can get some payback, I can get my revenge. And he says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good."
That's right.
In the middle of that pit, in the middle of the prison cell? Was Joseph looking to say, wow, what's God doing here? Or do you think Joseph was hunkered down and I'm thinking how I would be? Oh, woe is me. Maybe, get all fetal and crawl up in a little ball and cry a little bit and complain a whole lot. I don't see anywhere in this whole story in Genesis that we were just reading in that chronological Bible last week. I don't see anywhere where Joseph stopped and complained and said, why me? What in the world did I do? Thrown in prison? He knows he's totally innocent? Did he stop and say, whoa, let me tell you, I didn't touch her. I don't have record of that. It doesn't say that. All of those trials that he was going through, he sums it up here. God intended it for good. God intended it for good. So, how do we deal with our situations? If we're in the middle of our pits or our prisons or our hospital rooms or whatever it is, do we look for God in those situations of how God's working? I don't know. I think we should. Barry and I were kind of teasing today in Sunday school. Somebody cuts you off on the street, somebody passes you on the freeway and cuts you off. Do you look for good in those little situations? Oh, that light changed in front of me. I needed to get to work. Are you looking for God's good in little situations? I think we want to look for God in those big hospital bed situations, those big things in life. We want God to show that He's evident in those things. But God just doesn't say, hey, I got you covered with the big things. I got you protected on all those big things. I'm with you. I got your back. God's got everything. One last verse I wanted to show you. This is Romans 8:28. You're probably familiar with this. It's kind of a famous verse. This is Paul speaking, and he's writing to the church at Rome, and he says something that applies to this whole idea of trusting God. He says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them. God causes everything to work together for the good of those, look what it says, who love God and are called according to His purpose.
Amen.
You're driving on the highway, that guy cuts you off. What good could that possibly be? Maybe God's working out something that if you would have been kept on your way like you intended, you would have been in an accident.
That's right.
I don't know. Do we look for the good that God intends for us? Or are we quick to complain and to kind of, why me? I don't deserve this. From our little human perspective, our point of view, we get to see the world in a very short way. God gets to see the world in a huge way. In our little point of view, we don't always get to see the bigger picture. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been in the hospital or in the doctor's office when that baby gets its immunization shots? He's like, oh, nope, that's not on me. I've been in that room. There is no possible way that I could have explained to Bailey or to Brady when they're that small that painful needle is actually doing good. From their experience as a little baby, there is only one thing that they know about that needle, and it's all bad.
That's right.
There is nothing good. There's no way that that baby would ever understand the bigger picture of what that needle is all about. But as a parent, do you have a little bit different perspective on the whole situation than the baby does? And I don't mean the perspective of, ooh, that needle's in you and it ain't in me. You have a little bit different view of the situation. I think we're like that baby. We see things in our little world, our little experience, our egocentric kind of point of view, and we don't see things from God's point of view. That's what the whole first verse was in Proverbs. Trust the Lord. If we leaned on our own understanding and only dealt with the things that we understood, oh my gosh, we're going to miss out on some things. God's got it covered. We just got to understand that God's got it covered. The last example that I want to share with you of this, from our understanding, things don't work the way that God looks at it. There's been one person in this world, one person that's walked this earth, that was totally and completely sinless. Jesus came to this world, lived, taught, never once did anything wrong. Yet he was crucified. He died. He was put on trial, he was beaten, and he was killed. From our understanding, that's wrong. That should not happen. Innocent people should not be punished. There's some understanding there. But if Jesus had looked at it from our point of view, and when the Romans showed up and arrested him, when he was standing in front of Pilate on trial, when he was being beaten by those soldiers, when his hands were nailed to the cross, when he hung up there on that cross, if he would have stopped and said, wait, I don't deserve this. This should not be happening. He would be speaking the truth. He didn't deserve it. That's not the point. But yet, he trusted God's plan that all that was going to happen. Not for him, not because of some sin that he had. That never happened. But it happened for us. But from our point of view, we look at that situation, we probably say, those situations, those innocent in prison, those innocent people getting persecuted or whatever, they should not happen. And that's true, they should not. But God had a much larger plan. The people standing there at the cross that day, they couldn't see that whole plan. But we have a little bit different view today. And I'm just calling on you. Put your trust in God. How do you do that? That was my first question I asked you. How do you do that? The first thing you got to do is make that decision. It's a decision you have to make. I can't control everything. I'm not even smart enough to even try to control everything. Whatever I want is what I want, but that's not always the best thing. You actually have to make a conscious decision to give that over to God. That's what I'm calling you all to do today. Trust in God. Trust in the Lord and lean not on your own understanding. Let's pray.